Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this wet Tuesday morning. We're glad to see each and every one of you. We know that you are ready to get started. I can't believe how many of you came in so quickly and quietly this morning after the parking. I know that any of you have problems parking this morning? A little? Or not too bad? Well, that's okay. It's getting better then. Last week we struggled to find places, so that's all right. So we're glad you're all here. How many of you received test scores yesterday? I know. How many of you are happy about those test scores? All right, thanks, Diane. We are proud of you. We all want to be like you. Oh, well, that just goes to show that we have much work to do, and we are going to get started today by looking at our reading. You know, that's been one of our challenges this year is getting our materials in place, getting our PD in place, and getting our plan finalized. And today we want to talk a little bit about the reading series and our plans for the year. Standards, our grade level standards. Is there an alignment there? So that's the first thing that we started working on with our literacy and reading coaches. We wanted to make sure that there was an alignment there because, good point, we want to make sure that we're teaching the right materials. So we checked for the alignment. The other thing that was requested was pacing. How do we know how much time to spend? Which parts of the unit should we use? So we've been working on identifying the most effective or most rigorous components that we could use that would cover the standards in each of those lessons. The other area that teachers really wanted some help with was time frames. How much time do we spend in each of those components to make sure that we're moving forward? And the last area was just help us figure out what's in all of this. What are the resources? What's there? What's the most effective? How can I get the most bang for my buck during that reading block of time every day? So that's been our focus area. And Amber has been working with the reading coaches since January or even before to provide these resources and to address those 4 areas. And now let me remind you, Amber is our science person. But behind the science, she is now our reading person until we make some other changes. And you know, that is a huge responsibility, but Amber has jumped in and has been a trooper throughout this. And I want you to know the documents and the materials you're going to receive today, I think are some of the finest that you've had in a while. So I hope you will enjoy them and you will recognize the effort and work that's going on. The team in the back, your reading coaches, wave your hands, reading coaches. They have been amazing. And on top of working in our schools, they've been here in the afternoons working on the projects. Give them a round of applause. They deserve it. Absolutely. And, you know, the great thing about this year is because our coaches have been out in the schools working in the trenches and with those students, they had firsthand knowledge. Almost all of our coaches took units from Wonders and actually completed the instruction with students so that they would have firsthand experience working through the materials and pacing. So I think that's a great compliment to them to say they wanted to know, will this really work? So they've used it. So we feel very comfortable in looking at the materials and knowing that they will work in your classrooms. All right. Now, this year, Wonders is required. We are going to use Wonders in every school in our district, K through 5. That means if you have something else in your building that you want to use, you may use it for intervention. But Wonders is our core curriculum. That's a district adopted core curriculum that we will all use in all classes, in all schools. All right, now here comes the next part. The beginning of the year provides an opportunity to start the year off in such a way that a particular portion of the book is dedicated to, it's called Smart Start. And we did not even address it this year because we were starting with a mid-year implementation. But Smart Start is the way to begin the year for teaching routines, rituals, procedures, it goes into how to manage your time during the reading block, turn and talk, use of instructional stations. It's the framework for guiding your students to use the time each day during the reading block, whether you're working directly with them or if they are working independently. Smart Start is K through 1 is a 2-week instructional unit, and in grades K through 1 is 3 weeks, and then 2 through 5 is 2 weeks. Now, I want you to give your teachers permission to take the time to teach Smart Start. Please tell them to go through this and use this. It will be worth the time and the investment. And I know it's very tempting to say, no, let me just get started on this. I'm going to get busy starting and teaching the standards. I need to get started. And I know we all feel that urgency, but it is critical that your teachers take the time to work through Smart Start with your students so that they establish those routines and procedures. Those will be used throughout the year, not only in your class. If they transfer to another school, they will be using the very same routines and procedures. So please give your teachers permission to teach Smart Start before they begin with their instruction into the actual reading passages. Now, if you have any questions about Smart Start, the materials are very self-explanatory. They can be addressed, to meet the needs of each classroom. And that's the other thing that we've done is we've tried to give some flexibility so that teachers can look at the materials, and while they know the components that are required, they also have some flexibility to make it their very own. Now, during this year, in addition to doing the Smart Start, the additional requirement is that we will be using DIBELS next. And that's important because it's not just DIBELS, it's DIBELS Next. And that is a different version than we've used in the past. And please know that it is more rigorous. And as you use DIBELS Next, we will use an assessment team to actually complete the assessment. And then we will input the information into the management system so that we can monitor throughout the district and provide support to you. I think several schools have begun looking at the DIBELS Next and have recognized that there are some very distinct differences and challenges there. So I challenge you to go ahead and start looking at that now with some of your lead teachers and to begin thinking about what changes you will make to address the needs of your students. We'll also, as a district, for the third required component, Smart Start, DIBELS Next, and our third component will be STAR. And that's not new, that's something we've been doing in the past. We'll use STAR Early Literacy for our kindergarten students that need it, and then we'll use STAR Math and Reading. We'll use those two for our universal screening tool and then for progress monitoring. And as you know, we're required to administer those tools 3 times, fall, and then our winter, and then our fall, our winter, and our spring screening periods. So please continue to use STAR and to look at the alignment between STAR and your Aspire scores. Now, let's recap. We know what our required components are, so let's review them to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Full implementation of Wonders and making sure that you're following the district guidelines and procedures and pacing. And we will all begin with our Smart Start at the beginning of the year. We'll use the Wonders assessments that are provided, so that eliminates the need for your teachers to go and find passages and or assessments. We'll use DIBELS Next, K through 2, and we'll use STAR Early Literacy and STAR Reading and Math. You received some STAR data today, and I know most of you have your Aspire scores. So it's critical that we listen today and look at the materials that are going to be provided so that we can start the year and provide a very systematic approach to reading. And I think you'll be very pleased as Amber is going to share with you our plan.
Okay, so I have a lot of information to give you today. I'm going to kind of stay right here. I am actually videoing what's going on my screen and my voice so that I can send this out to you later if you want to refer back to it. I'm also going to send you this PowerPoint at some point, not as it is right now because it's super messy because I've changed it a million times. But when I have what I've actually said, I'll give you a PowerPoint that goes along with what I'm telling you today. Before I get started, these are the curriculum teams that we had this year. All of those names up there have worked so hard on just everything we've asked them to do. I'm not a self-proclaimed reading person, so I've learned a lot this year. I'm going to go over with you some of the things that I've learned as I've gone through this. Those reading coaches in the back, they have done just amazing things, but not just them. I mean, there have been so many people who've just dropped what they're doing to help poor pitiful me, and I'm really excited about what we've been able to put together for you and what's being put together for you. I'm going to start in kind of a strange place. Before I even start thinking about pacing, I'm going to talk to you about STAR a little bit. STAR, I had a hard time with STAR because there's more than one option. There's the district option that generally looks prettier. It usually has more green and less red, right? Okay, and then there are Aspire options. And I knew that we were supposed to use the Aspire option. I knew the Aspire option was more rigorous, but in true toddler fashion, I kept asking, why? Why is that different? Why is the Aspire one better for us? Does the Aspire one show what we need to do with Wonders? How is it helping us make instructional decisions? If it's not helping us make instructional decisions that align with our materials, it's not really worth very much. So I looked at, this is the percentiles, and any district one, whether it's kindergarten or 5th grade, you're going to see that 10% is your red kids, up to 25% is your yellow, 40 is your blue, and everybody else is green. But if you look at Aspire, you can definitely have a kid who's green in the district option, and then if you come over this way, you can have a kid who's red in the Aspire option at the same time with the same score, which is ridiculous. And that doesn't tell me anything. So and you can see, I used true elementary teacher fashion and colored this with crayons. That's the only way I could understand what was going on. So then what I did, I took the same breakdowns. This is 5th grade. And I took the Aspire option and the district option and put them side by side all the way across. And then I took the grade level equivalent for 5th grade. This purple you see in the back, that is 5.0 to 5.9. Check it out. Sometimes 5.0 to 5.9 grade level is yellow and blue, and sometimes it's green, and sometimes it's just all over the place. And it made me like slam my fists on my desks a few times because it didn't make any sense. Why would we use the Aspire option if it's not telling us anything? So I started looking at Lexile numbers because Wonders materials are aligned to Lexile. And I looked at Renaissance charts that they have made, and the Lexile numbers didn't match what I saw in the Common Core Lexile numbers. And by that I mean, like if I looked at 7th grade, or not 7th grade, if I looked at 5th grade, I expected to see the Lexile band from Common Core, and I didn't. So I called Renaissance and said, hey Renaissance, are your Lexile numbers wrong? And they said, no, our Lexile numbers are right. We got Lexile to do that for us. They have like a little trademark symbol and everything. And I said, then how does that work on here? And Michelle Collier, we called somebody one time, they were like, I don't know. We'll talk to our boss. And then the next one was like, I don't know. We'll talk to our boss. Like we went up the chain trying to figure this out. I finally busted out my crayons again because that's how I work. And I took these charts and I overlaid them with the Lexile numbers. I went through STAR and I pulled 1 million reports. I mean, at least 100. trying to figure out which Lexile number went with which grade level equivalent. Okay, here. This is 5th grade. Again, here's the grade level equivalents. This is the band, the grade level band from CCRS for Lexile, right there. Now this green and blue makes a little bit more sense in that Aspire option. It has nothing to do with the grade level equivalents. It has everything to do with the Lexile numbers. The Aspire option is aligned to Lexile bands from CCRS. And the Lexile bands don't necessarily match up with what STAR had as a grade level equivalent. So the grade level equivalents for the current CCRS Lexile bands in 5th grade is 5.8 to 7.4. Ooh. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it gets better. 4th grade, and I mean, it makes a lot more sense if you look at the Lexile numbers, but let me show you something. This is important. That district option is prettier. It has green all over the place. It does, per Renaissance and their research, it does show that students can do the standards at that grade level. However, it does not show if they can do it at complex text level. The Aspire option does. The Aspire option shows that they can do the work at the level of complex text. That is why we use the Aspire option. That's why it's the better option for our students, because it shows what they can do with complex text, which is what we've been asked to do with CCRS. So, I'm going to show you. This took a long time to make this, y'all. There was probably a way easier way to do it, but these are the Lexile bands for 1st, 2nd through 3rd, and 4th through 5th. And I've got on there what the grade level equivalents in STAR are to those Lexile numbers. Is that not one of the scariest things you've ever seen in your whole life? I mean, look at 1st grade. By the end of 1st grade, they should be at a 530 Lexile. That is what used to be considered a 3.9 in STAR. 3rd grade, and by the end of the 2nd, 3rd grade level band, they should be at an 820 Lexile. That's what STAR considers a 5.4 grade equivalent. And then for 4th and 5th, they should be at 1025 by the end of 5th grade. That is what Lexile, or what the grade equivalent is considered a 6.8 for that Lexile. Now, if your heart has not dropped into your stomach yet, it will. At some point, it'll hit you. Now, this is just what CCRS defines these as. That's not really what I was looking for. I mean, I'm glad I found it, and that's something that I needed to find, but what I really wanted to know was, are our Wonders resources going to match up to what STAR is recommending and what is considered grade level with CCRS? So I took this chart, and then for each grade level, this is 1st grade, okay? By the end of the year, to be considered the minimum amount for ready, they should be right here at this blue marker. However, Wonders begins 1st grade at this green number right here, and Wonders ends the year over here at this red number. 1st grade is going to have to be much more rigorous than it has been in the past, and that's part of the reason STAR and DIBELS is going to be super important this year, because they've got to be pushed a lot further than they have been, because it's required, not just based on standards, but because the Wonders materials are there. And so with 1st grade, I mean, that 1st semester, we're learning how to read, but starting in January, we need to be pushing. I mean, if we don't, we're just going to get further and further behind. I mean, that's just reality, that's just facts. Now, if I keep going, second grade, it gets better as the grades go up. I will say that. Second grade, to be the minimum requirement for ready, right here at a 3.3 in second grade. The Wonders material starts right here at a 3.0, and it ends right here at a 4.0, or whatever the Lexile number is for those. Third grade, the minimum requirement for ready is right here. It begins at about a 3.9, or what used to be considered a 3.9, and now is at a 5.3 by the end of the year. Fourth grade, they begin at the same place as minimum requirement for ready at the end of the year, and then they end at about a 5.6. Fifth grade, they start about right here, but their minimum requirement for ready and where Wonders ends is exactly the same. Now, this helped me a lot to see like the correlation between STAR and CCRS and our Wonders materials. Now, get ready, because what I did next, I looked at those Wonders materials and I pulled the scope and sequence for all my grade levels, okay? Now, that's very easy to do. If you go to Connect Ed, if you hit this little resource button right here, there's a search box on the left. You can search for just about anything you want and Wonders will pull it up. So if you type in scope and sequence, it will pull up a scope and sequence document for you. And on that, oh, I went too far. On that scope and sequence document, it has the Lexile numbers of all the materials for every week. It's got your shared read, it's got your lit anthology, it's got all your level readers. They're all in there. And so I went through all of them and I aligned them based on the Lexile numbers for needs support, close, ready, and exceeding. What are those from? They're from Aspire. They're also from the Aspire option in STAR. Needs support almost never shows up. Not in any leveled reader, not in anything that they have. I think needs support showed up twice, and I think it was both in 5th grade. Never shows up. Now hang on a minute. Hang on. Stay with me. Let's go back for a minute. Let's get this. That red. Oh, that red. If the red represented just our special education services students, that wouldn't be very scary because I have complete faith in our special education department. They've got those kids. But this red is not special education kids only. In fact, it's not even most. If you look at that little card we gave you with your STAR data on it, that needs support number, the red number, that's how many of your kids are red. And if you know your kids, you know about how many of those kids are special needs or special education services kids or whatever. The rest of those red kids need something, and Wonders does not have it. Hello. We adopted Wonders. It is a good program. It's good because it helps students meet standards, but it helps proficient students meet standards. So what am I about to tell you? Some of you are looking at me like, what could she possibly say next? Here's my recommendation. I recommend WonderWorks. Now let me say this, the special education department is looking into, and I think they probably are, going to buy WonderWorks for their special education teachers for those kids. But I'm telling you, especially based on that number I gave you, a lot of your kids need WonderWorks who are not special education students. Now, Amber Smalley has no money. If I could wear a name tag with my budget around it, it would have Amber Smalley and 0, okay? I have no money, but you might be able to purchase WonderWorks with some of your school funds. Now, in a semi-ideal world, in an ideal world, there would be no need for WonderWorks, but in a semi-ideal world, you'd be able to get WonderWorks for all your teachers so that they can meet the needs of those kids, especially if you have a really, really large red or yellow number, or both. Now, those red and yellow numbers, 16 of you have half or more of your kids in that range. 34 of you have a third or more of your kids in that range. I mean, I'm letting you know the facts. I'm being very blunt, but the WonderWorks stuff is good. And I'm going to tell you why. They're short lessons. They're done in small groups. They have 2 tracks that kids can take. If they are not decoding at a certain level, they do foundational skills. If they are decoding at least 2 grade levels, maybe at 2 to 3 grade levels below, they are put into a system that is a scaffolded version of what they're getting in whole group. And it looks just like what they're getting in whole group. You see on the screen on the right, you see the page that they see in whole group. On the left, you see the one that they get in WonderWorks. It's scaffolded, they can write on it. There's very good explicit teacher instruction in that book. They also get level readers that are on their level. They're below the approaching level. They're at an apprentice level. They look just alike, but they have lower level text in them. And that's how they learn to close read at their level. Foundational skills kits come with it. And then they have this thing called adaptive learning. It's a computer program where they play games and the computer teaches them things through the games. It makes a report for the teacher that tells where the kid needs the most help, and it tells the teacher exactly what lesson to pull in small group for that child based on the games they've been playing in the adaptive learning environment. So it's a good program, and if you are able to purchase it for your students and you need to, there it is. You can. The demo site is still up, and if you go to it, you can see anything from WonderWorks in it. In the Connect Ed site that we have already purchased, some of the WonderWorks stuff is in it. The foundational skills cards are already there. The level readers are in that system. So there's some flexibility there, but this afternoon, at the end of the meeting, Faith Davis and Sally Patton from McGraw-Hill will be in the cafeteria downstairs. They knew that some of you were interested in practice books and different level readers, and they're going to have WonderWorks stuff down there for you to look at if you would like to. So that's going to be available to you this afternoon. And I wish, hear this teacher's hearts. I wish I could purchase that for all of you. If I could, I totally would. But I can't, probably. And so I'm going to try. But when your budget's zero, that doesn't get you very far. But I need you to know what the situation is and what might be able to help. If a lot of you end up purchasing it, I can help coordinate PD for you. Because if there's a lot of you, it'll be a little bit better for us to all get together for PD and instead of having to schedule McGraw-Hill 50 however many times. But I wanted you to know that. Now, from here, we have made something called a decision tree for students. And these documents are going to be in your pacing, okay? Now, it'll let me out. Let me show you what one of those looks like. What we've done, we've taken what would happen with data, and we have made specific recommendations based on data. Let me start with a third grade one. If I can get there. Okay, So here's third grade. And what we've done, we've defined the different kinds of students that we have. So if we have, this is for students who are not receiving special education services, okay? Priority 1 students would be pretty much anybody who scored in the red range on the ACT Aspire option in STAR, okay? Now the best recommendation we have for them is the Foundational Skills program in WonderWorks. Now, right now, I have a summer curriculum team who is compiling resources, and we're hoping that we will be able to create some like alternative options for this. I don't know what we're going to be able to complete here in the summertime, but that's the best option that we have right now, even though we don't even have it. That's the best recommendation I've got right now, but we're going to try to come up with some alternatives there too. Just know that that's coming. But once they have tested in that range, they need a spelling inventory. If you've ever done Words Their Way, it's Donald Bear's spelling inventory, and I have it within this decision tree. It's right here. It's just basically like a spelling pretest. The kids do it on their own notebook paper, and you're able to see exactly what level the kid is at, so you'll know which foundational skill to start with. Okay, a priority 2 student is anybody in the lower close yellow range of STAR. And we have broken it up. I figured out what the percentile range was for that, and it's written on the sheet for you. If they score in that range, they also need the exact same thing. They need foundational skills as a third grader. And so you do the exact same thing. You use that spelling inventory, but you probably have them landing in a different spot. Priority 3 is they're in that high yellow range. And those kids, if they score below a 96 in DIBELS, they're not going to be able to decode well enough to do that accessing complex text part. They probably need foundational skills. But if they are able to score at least a 96 on DIBELS and they're in that range in STAR, then they can go to that accessing complex text track where they're using the scaffolded textbook option in WonderWorks. Now, all of this right now is based on WonderWorks. And I'm telling you, I'm going to try to have some alternative resources available, but right now I don't. And that's the best recommendation that I have for these kids, these red and yellows. Okay, it looks very much the same way for each grade level. There's different percentiles listed. There's different DIBELS scores listed. For kindergarten and first, it's very simple because all they have available to them if they're not up to where they need to be is foundational skills, because that's what they're working in anyway. So we're working on coming up with some alternatives. We do not have those yet, but we have this decision tree in your pacing to help you make decisions about these kids if you have the resources for them. And even if you don't, it kind of breaks your kids down into their needs. There will be one of these decision trees in every single pacing for you. Now, the reason I went over this first is so you would know what I mean when I say a priority 1 student, which is a red student. A priority 2 is a low yellow. Priority 3 is a high yellow. Okay. Now, let's look at pacing. So, there's nothing posted for reading right now. I'm going to post it this afternoon after I catch all, hopefully, my typos. I'm going to ask you to wait at least a week before you print them, because I know as soon as I post them, everybody's going to find all the mistakes, which is a good thing. Please do that for me. And also, there's some pages that are not printing properly right now, like it's zooming in on certain parts of the page instead of printing the whole page. So give us at least a week, but go ahead and pull it, use the information. It's going to be on the ELA K5 page. The science pacing is posted. It's on the science pages. The social studies is posted. It's on the elementary science, not the elementary science, elementary social studies page, which is new. Those are there. They've got dates on them and everything. They're good to go. So pacing. Let me pull one of them up for you. Now, when we when we surveyed teachers, kindergarten said, okay, for the most part, we're able to get all of the instruction in the 5-day period, unless it's an assessment week. Then we have a hard time getting everything in. And so what we have done for kindergarten, after Smart Start will be a 3-week period of just learning the routines of school, learning how to have collaborative conversations, learning how to go to centers, learning how to do a close read in a very simple way in the beginning of school. After Smart Start, teachers will have 5 school days, kindergarten teachers will have 5 school days to teach each week of Wonders lessons, unless it is a unit test week. If it is a unit test week, they have 7 days so that they can get that review and assessment in. There will not be CFAs in any reading class this year. No CFAs K5. CFAs are not going to be in there this year. We're going to use Wonders assessments. Your teachers, we're going to have to rewrite them anyway. We're not rewriting them. We're using Wonders assessments. Kindergarten will use unit assessments. Those unit assessments occur every 2 to 3 weeks in kindergarten. We are asking we're asking teachers to skip all of the review weeks in kindergarten. Those are, and I have them listed on the pacing for you, all of the even numbered units, the 3rd week is a review unit. The reason we're skipping those is because we have to get through the whole book by the end of the year to teach all the standards for kindergarten. And in order to get through the whole book, we've got to skip all the review stuff. And so you'll have to get through Unit 10, Week 2 in kindergarten. No, that's not right. Kindergarten teachers will need to make their own EQTs. We considered letting them use the unit tests as that, but since they're using unit tests as major grades, we can't have them using them as EQTs also. And I've talked to a lot of kindergarten teachers, and I have not had any of them complain about having to make their own EQTs as a kindergarten teacher. So that's a good thing. What we're going to do, I'm going to give you a set deadline schedule for when I need data from you. What the central office is going to do this next year, every month, Ms. Moore, our assistant superintendent, some of our school improvement specialists, a lot of us are going to get together and we're going to go over data every month. And the reason we're going to do that, we're going to see if there's any weaknesses, if we see any trends among feeder patterns, if there's anything that we can find to help you, that's going to be where we're going to find it. And so I've got that you need to have your STAR and DIBELS data turned in for the benchmark. That's a no-brainer. But we're also going to ask you to turn in Wonders data. And David Morrow is working with me. We're going to try to make that process as simple as possible. It's probably going to be something that looks very much like a Google form with 5 questions on it. How many vocabulary were missed? How many comprehension were missed? How many writing were missed across the class? And we're going to give you an easy way to make that happen. I'm going to try to make that as easy on you as possible because I can remember I had taught for a county that made me enter all of my kids' questions in one at a time, and I wanted to hit somebody with those tests. I'm going to try to make it as easy on you and your teachers as possible, but you'll have to turn that data in to us. This turn-in schedule is rigid, but your calendar is going to be a little flexible, okay? And so what I've done, I'm giving you some blank calendars to be able to pace out your year. And Let me go down here. Just a minute. I am. All of this will be posted probably this afternoon. It will definitely be posted by tomorrow morning. Okay, so I have blank calendars, and on the calendar it has when DIBELS testing is, when STAR testing is, and on the side for each month it will tell you what is due at the end of that month. Okay, now I've got the blank ones so that you can paste that out, because it's 5 days a week for kindergarten teachers, except on unit test week, you got 7 days. But I made an example, okay? I like examples. And on the example, if it's written in my handwriting, it's flexible. It can be changed. If you have a week where teachers think they can get through their instruction faster, they can do that. They're free to do that. If they don't want to split up some instruction over a weekend or over a holiday and they can still get it in, they're free to do that. Anything on these pages that are typed, that are in font, are set in stone. They can't be changed. Like these deadlines, the STAR testing windows, but all of this stuff that's in my handwriting can be moved as long as you get your data in on time. And the main reason that I gave you an example is so you can see the relationship between pacing out how many days you have for each week and the due date. When I made the example, I made it so that you had plenty of time to get all of this graded and in by the due date listed on the side. So it's not like you're going to finish Unit 1 on the last day of the month and have to turn it in on that day. Your goal is to get that done way ahead of that day so you can get it graded and into the central office. So I've got that available to you for your help, I guess. But the blank ones are there so your teachers can make them themselves too. But this is flexible because I know like some people have a really hard time with ending on a Monday, and some people have a really hard time with splitting across a holiday, and some people don't care. I mean, as long as you get data to us in a timely manner, I think we're going to be happy. But that's kindergarten. Let me scroll back up and make sure I didn't miss some stuff on kindergarten spacing. Kindergarten special. Their stuff is almost always a little different. Okay, I've also defined on each of the pacings what turned in means. Turned in for STAR data means all your kids have been tested by the end of the STAR window. If they've been tested, they're in the system. That's all you need to do. You don't have to give us any extra information. DIBELS, your kids need to be DIBELed and they need to be entered into the DIBELS database by the time their scores need to be in the database by the due date. That's DIBELS. The Wonders weekly data or the unit data for kindergarten, that is just going to be that form that I told you is coming that looks kind of like a Google form. I think we're going to be able to do it through Moodle, but it'll be a very simple form for each group of tests. I did put grade requirements in the pacing guide for kindergarten this year, 3 major grades, 3 minor grades each quarter. That's it for kindergarten. 3 major, 3 minor. 2 of those quarters, they'll have 3 unit tests, so that's their major grades right there. That's the minimum. And I listed out examples of what that means for each one. A lot of teachers, when we had the PD, really liked the progress monitoring pages. That's a really good minor grade. So kindergarten is just 3 and 3, and the EQT is still 10%. I put reteach, retest in the pacing guide, so it was there and handy. Let me go over it. Reteach, retest applies only to major summative grades. And we are calling any of those Wonders assessments, the unit assessments, weekly assessments, those are considered summative major grades. So those are subject to reteach, retest. Students scoring below a 60 must be retested after a period of reteaching. There are reteaching plans already available for each one of those tests in Wonders. Okay, let me show you what my curriculum team for the summer is doing right now. They are compiling together folders for your teachers. And they're putting in one PDF document every single thing that Wonders has available for a week together in one document. It's so cool. And so, let me show you, this is 4th grade. Look at all this stuff. I can go to level reader cards. There's all the ones for this week. This is Unit 2, Week 4 for Wonders. I can go to the activity cards for that week. There they are. They're all there together. Oh my goodness. And then if anything is called for on those cards, it's going to be listed under the cards so that they don't have to hunt through, I think it's 20-something books. The grammar pages are there if they want them. The answer to close reading, all that stuff is in one document together. At the very top of all of these documents, what they've done, they've put this page at the top. This page is the page that tells what to do with the previous week's assessment results. So let's say you have a baby who made a 60. How do I reteach that baby? Well, it tells you exactly what to do. It says if they scored low in comprehension, then you're going to teach these lessons from the Tier 2 book. You know where you're going to be able to find those? You're going to scroll down past this little page and check it out. There's the lesson. How about that? There it is. If their problem wasn't comprehension, if it was vocabulary, lesson 134. Just going to scroll right on down. Go on down. There it is. Ta-da! That's what they're working on. I know.
And we hope that you're seeing a common thing here as to teaching to mastery. We're showing you decision trees, we're showing you if a student scores here, do this. We're showing you if a student failed or scored below a certain point, then you need to make sure that you're reteaching, because our focus has to be teaching to mastery, because that's what we're seeing. And if you look at your STAR scores and you're seeing that even your Aspire scores, you're seeing that your 3rd grade students are struggling. Your 3rd grade teachers are teaching and teaching and teaching, but those scores are not where they need to be. Maybe that support needs to go down to kindergarten and come back with a different focus at kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. So start really talking to your teachers about mastery, teaching to mastery. I think these are some of the best tools that we've been able to provide teachers to give them a support system to show them what to do to address those deficits. So we hope that as we're showing this to you, that you'll have time to go through this and then work with your teachers so that they can actually use the tools. It has taken hours and hours and hours to provide this information in such a way that you can use it. And I'm telling you, the team in the back, the team that's not here, and Amber, they have really worked hard. But what they wanted was a resource for any teacher that if you knew what to do, you could use it as a guide and do what you need to do. But if you're a new teacher or a teacher that didn't have as much experience with reading, that you could use this to really teach to mastery. So that has to be our focus this year. Take that message back that kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, teach to mastery. There's absolutely no way for us to recover if you have a student that didn't get what they need in kindergarten. And if they are not getting what they need in kindergarten, then again in 1st grade, I'm not sure that we have the resources nor the time to be able to get that student to a point where they can be successful. We can't waste a minute. When they walk in the door, we have to give these students quality instruction that meets their needs. We can't afford to let them get behind. So our focus has to be on mastery. And the tools are here for you now. And we need to make sure that our teachers understand them, because there are a lot of materials here. But if the teachers understand them, I think they're going to be so pleased with the resources they have and the success that our students will have.
Now, after they've done that reteaching part, they need to retest. They are allowed to retake the original test because there's not really a good alternative out there for each one of those tests. So they are allowed to retake the original test. The grade cannot exceed 70 if they've retested. The reteaching test has to occur in the same quarter that it happened. Duh. Reteaching, retesting should occur within 5 to 7 days of the original test. They can only retest one time. The original grade will not exceed a 70. EQTs will never be retested. EQTs are final. Okay? You with me? Okay, good deal. If there is a class average of less than 70, teachers are required to retest the entire class. Students scoring 80% or more on the original may opt not to take it again. Does not apply. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that's kindergarten. I'm going to take you to first grade. Okay, first grade. First grade teachers said, hey, if we didn't have to take the pesky assessment on assessment weeks, we could get all our instruction in. And so they are going to have to take the pesky assessment. So we're giving them 6 days for each week of Wonders lessons. That way they have the 5 days of instruction, and then they have an extra day for assessment and extra small group stuff, a bit more writing in. We've got 6 days in first grade. Let me get down to first grade. Oh, hang on. Before I do that, show you. After the calendars, you have pacing guides. And the pacing guides have a different purpose now because you have Wonders materials that guide your instruction. This tells you what standards are being addressed each week in whatever you're teaching. They even have the ones for Smart Start. On these, it tells you what standards are being covered for which lessons, which page numbers. If it's bold with an asterisk, it's going to be tested that week. That's going to be assessed. So if it's bold with an asterisk, that is an assessed standard or skill for the week, or for in kindergarten for the unit. We have focus standards for comprehension. We have other comprehension standards that come up during the week. And then we've listed out, even for vocabulary and everything else, we've listed out the standards for your teachers and what page numbers. Now, if we had listed out every single standard covered every single week, the page would be like 1,000,000 pages long because Wonders strives to cover all 10 anchor standards every week. And so if it's on here, one of two things is happening. Either there's at least 2 lessons covered by that standard that week, or it's a recurring standard that happens over and over every single week, like spelling. That's going to come up every single week, even though you're not necessarily teaching 2 instances of spelling each week. This is good for accountability. It's good for reference. And then in kindergarten, the writing is incorporated, but when we get in the lower grades, I'll show you they have a writing box too. That's going to be helpful to you. But let's go to first grade. And first grade, like I said, 6 days per week of Wonders lessons. And pretty much everything is the same that I told you before, except for EQTs. First grade teachers will make their first quarter EQT. The reason they're going to make that first quarter EQT is because they will not get through a whole unit before EQT time. And so they couldn't use the Unit 1 test because they would not have gotten through all the instruction for Unit 1. So they need to make their own. I highly recommend that they take that Unit 1 assessment and just modify it to meet their needs.
Let me remind you, why are we not just following the pacing that came with Wonders? Because we had multiple teachers, reading coaches throughout the district that we ask to teach particular units to tell us, is it possible to do all of this within the time frame that Wonders is giving you? And a lot of times they would say, yes, if everything aligns perfectly and no one has a problem and there's not an assembly in our school, or if there's not some kind of field trip, or if there's not something going on. And then other times it was absolutely not, you cannot do it, because guess what? Everyone's not on grade level. Makes perfect sense. So what we did was we took all of the comments and all of the concerns and we changed the pacing. So this is our pacing based on the feedback that we've been getting from teachers, because we don't want teachers just rushing through it to say that they covered the unit. We want them to teach to mastery. And as they're going through this, if they're seeing problems, or if they're saying it's killing us to do this part of this unit, this lesson every day, we need to know. We feel like that we got a lot of input, and this is a very fair and a very practical approach, and we think that this is reasonable. But if there's something that is not working, something that we've overlooked, please let us know. But that's why you have more time. That's why we changed the amount of time, like for first quarter, rather than trying to go through the entire unit. They're only getting through part of it, and they're doing their own EQT. So we want you to know that we're doing our own version of this, but we're doing this because we want our focus to be on mastery, and we want our teachers to really be able to teach it. Now, the other thing that you're going to see as Amber goes through is that because of the documents you're going to receive, we are saying, if it is okay with you guys, that the teachers can use that as their plan. They should just highlight what they're doing, if there's something they're adding, but they can use the instructional material that they receive as their lesson plan. They would only need to add what they're doing for small group and what they're doing in workstations or centers. Now, if you need to change that, that is entirely up to you. But as you go through the documents, you'll see that they're very explicit. The teacher's edition gives specific direction and guidance for the teacher to follow. I would rather the teachers spend their time reviewing the materials and being able to deliver it and being very comfortable with it, rather than rewriting what they're going to be doing in the classroom. But that's a decision that you would feel you would want to do something different with. That's up to you. But I will tell you, even with the plans, if you are not familiar with the passage, if you're not familiar with the routines, if you're not familiar with the materials, you won't get through it in 3 hours. You must be familiar with the materials, the routines, and the procedures. So planning time should be on reviewing the materials so that you can actually roll it out with familiarity and you can use the time effectively. So there's a focus change on how to prepare for the reading instruction. So if you have teachers that are saying, I cannot get through all of this, it may be that they are not prepared when they go in. Work with them, talk with them, conference with them to see how much time they're spending preparing. But that may be one of the concerns. Amber, if you'll go ahead and continue with first grade, and we'll keep going.
Okay. So first quarter, the first grade teachers will have to make their own EQT. But after that, second quarter will be the Unit 2 tests minus the grammar portion. Unit 3 test for EQT 3 minus the grammar portion. Unit 4 is the EQT for 4 minus the grammar portion. It's there for them. And then just like in kindergarten, I've got a very rigid set of deadlines for them to turn in their data each month. And again, I have those blank calendars for you, and then an example set of calendars so you can see how those 6 days were. And I'm going to tell you, like when I made the example one, I made it like I would do if it was me for my classroom. So every once in a while, because of where holidays were placed or whatever, sometimes I gave them 7 days, or I squished it to 5 for a little bit. I mean, you're going to have to kind of work with it to get it to do what you need it to do. But that's first grade. Let me see if there's anything else in there. First grade, Their grade requirements, actually first through fifth, 6 major and 3 minor. And most of the time, no, I think second quarter and third quarter, they'll have 6 major tests scheduled already, so that'll be their 6 major grades. But that first quarter and that last quarter, they won't have 6 that are already scheduled. Here's what we're letting you do, and it's right here in the section. Your teachers can give no more than 2 of the selection tests if they so choose. If they do give those selection tests, the kids have to be able to look back at the text. No, they don't have to use those as their other major grades. That's just one of your options. They could do a project, they could do anything that's going to be major in reading, but we are going to allow, if they need them, those selection tests are an option for major grades. They probably won't need them quarter 2 or quarter 3, but quarter 1, quarter 4, they might need another grade for major. So that's going to be for it. Minor grades, we've listed out several examples for that. EQT is 10% in first through third. And first grade, and this is the only grade that has a missing standard, but Alabama added a standard that says write simple poems addressing a topic. And that's not covered in Wonders anywhere. So at some point during the year, your teachers need to get your first grade babies to write a poem addressing a topic. Now, when I made out that example plan, there ended up being a lot of review time at the end of second quarter when things are kind of Christmassy anyway. And so that might be a good time to write a poem about a topic. I mean, they can do it anytime they want, but they need to incorporate that one standard, and it's not already in there for them. And Reteach, Retest, it is printed in the pacing for you. Like I said, they have the calendars in there, and they have the deadlines on there for them. They have the example calendars. And then after that, here's this pacing document again. And at the bottom, let me scroll down to a later unit. At the bottom of each week, there is a writing block. And that writing block, what the curriculum team did, they tried to, we're still using traits this year. Traits is process writing, Wonders is response to text writing. And so they tried to combine them in the most cohesive way possible. And they have put, keep walking away from the computer, I've got to record my voice. They tell day 1 in traits, this is the lesson you do. Day 2 in Wonders, this is the lesson you do and the page number. Day 3, traits, here's the lesson. Like they've paced it out day by day, first grade through 5th grade like that, so that teachers can have an easier time planning this writing instruction. So that is there on the pacing for you guys. Okay, that's first grade. Now, second grade. Now, 2nd through 5th is all kind of similar, okay? 2nd through 5th grade teachers said to us, we can't get it all in that 5-day week. There's 2 problems. One of the problems is that lit anthology day where they do a close read and a close reread. It's extremely difficult to get all that into one day. That's ridiculous. And so it'd be better if that was 2 days. Read one day, reread the next day. And they also, just like all the other grades, we're having a hard time getting the assessment in during the week. So 2nd through 5th grade will have 7 days to do each week in Wonders. And let's see. Let me see if there's any major differences. 2nd through 5th grade, their Smart Start will be a little shorter. Theirs is 2 weeks. EQTs for 2nd through 5th, same as 1st grade. They'll have to make their first quarter EQT because they won't get all the way through Unit 1 by the end of the quarter. But the other ones are unit tests. So Unit 2 test is for EQT 2, Unit 3 test is for EQT 3, and Unit 4 test is for EQT 4. Grammar taken out of all of those so that it's a true reading test. Same thing with the data turn-in. I have a specific list for you. I have the blank calendars. I have the example calendars. Let's see. Grade requirements for 2nd through 3rd is 6 major, 3 minor. What I told you about selection tests still applies. And their EQT in 2nd and 3rd grade is 10%. In 4th and 5th, it'd be 20%, just like it's been before. Reteach, retest is the same. Okay. Let me scroll down and see if let me make sure I'm covering all the bases. We have blank calendars in there, we have the example calendars, and we have the pacing. Now, there's some more stuff in the pacing guide, and I'm going to come back to it, okay? So I want to show you something else. Does anybody have questions about that so far, though? Is this going to be something that will be helpful to you? Okay, I'm glad. We tried. We really did. Okay, so let me talk to you about Smart Start. Okay, let me talk to you about Smart Start a little bit, because Smart Start is something that good teachers do anyway. In order to go faster, you must first slow down. And so at the beginning of the year, this gives them time to learn the routines of school, to learn how to talk to each other as partners, how to have, these lessons are condensed lessons. They're probably going to take up about 45 minutes of class time so that teachers have time to teach kids the routines of school, how to go to centers. Let's practice being independent in centers for a while. It lays it out very well for them. They're going to teach them how to have collaborative conversations. They're even going to watch videos of students having good collaborative conversations in the classroom. During Smart Start, they are doing collaborative conversations. They're learning about vocabulary. They're going to access complex text. They're going to do close reads of both nonfiction and fiction texts. They're going to learn how to cite evidence. They're going to decode multisyllabic words. They're going to do fluency things, and they're going to write about reading. The curriculum team that I have working right now, they are compiling the documents that your teachers will need for Smart Start, and my hope is that I will be able to have those printed for you. There will be Blackline Masters for them, but the other thing we're putting in there's an instructional routine handbook, and it tells step-by-step how to do close reading, how to read a multisyllabic word, things like that. We're going to put some of those in there for teachers too, so they have that in hand. So my hope is that I'll get to be able to print that for you. I will email you and let you know that for sure. During Smart Start, you as the principal should see students practicing the routines of school. They're not all going to be in desks in neat little rows during this time. They're going to be practicing what school is like, even as 5th graders. They're going to be practicing having conversations. There's going to be a constant change of activity. This is going to look different than what you're used to seeing during the year. This is also, we are strongly recommending that teachers take one of those approaching level tests and do a practice test with their students, because these tests are much more difficult than what they've been used to seeing in the past. And if they can go through that with their kids, the hardest part of those tests is the format. So if teachers will go through those tests with them, that's a good time to do that during Smart Start. This is also when STAR screening and DIBELS will be happening. It is critical that you let your teachers do that Smart Start portion. And the pacing, we've got it down. We need you to do that with them. And I'm going to skip over that because I need to. Now, you're going to have to really say on your teachers about planning. Anchor Standard 10 says read and comprehend complex literary and informational text independently and proficiency. That complex part, that means that it's hard, okay? It's going to be hard. There's no way around it. That's just the way it is. And so Wonders is wonderfully laid out for your teachers, but its biggest positive is also its biggest danger. It's laid out. And so if they just come to school and just kind of go with the script, they're not going to do well. They've got to have all of that planned out before they come to school that first day of the week. And so this needs to be your focus for grade level meetings, making sure that they prepare, that they've read through the lesson, and that they know the purpose of the materials. That purpose of the materials is a big deal because there's a spotlight focus every week. It's usually a comprehension and a vocabulary, skill and strategy, and they usually appear in the mini lessons, and then they'll appear again as graphic organizers in the first read in the lit anthology. But then Wonders tries to cover all 10 anchor standards every week. And so some of the materials have a different purpose. If your teacher doesn't know what the purpose is, they're probably not going to teach it well. And so, for example, okay, these are the 4 main components. These are non-negotiable. Teachers have to do this every week. The reading writing workshop, including the listening comprehension section. That's the shared read and the mini lessons. They have to do the close reading. That's the first read is to understand the text. The second read is to reread with a purpose and to understand the complexity of the text. Text connections and the assessment. Those are the 4 main components of Wonders. Now, this close reading companion. This is where we want students to be. If they're proficient, they can get there. These students who can go back into the text a second time with purpose and apply it, those are your proficient readers. This is where we want kids to be. Now, the purpose of the close reading companion, though, is not necessarily the focus standard of the week. In fact, it rarely is. And I've heard that some people are skipping this because it's not the focus standard of the week. Don't skip this. This is one of the best tools that you have because it addresses the characteristics of text that make the text complex. That's its purpose. Not necessarily to speak to the focus standard. It's to help kids understand the complexity of the text. And so they're not going to ask like about main idea. They're going to ask, why would the author include this picture? Why is it there? Why would the author put this chart in this story? How does this chart help you? And if you'll notice, a few weeks later, the assessment will have the same kind of complexity as you're seeing in the close reading companion. This addresses complexity of text. This is very, very, very important. Don't skip this. It's very important. I can't say that enough. We want the kids to be able, our goal is for them to be able to do that on their own at the end of the year. But until the end of the year, they're not going to be able to do that one. Even if they are proficient, beautiful readers, students are not expected to complete that close reading companion on their own. That has to be teacher-led. And the lower the students, the more teacher-led it's going to have to be. More modeling. As students get more proficient, they can release more responsibility to them, but at the beginning of the year, this is going to be very teacher-centered, very teacher-led. It's very appropriate to teach those close reading companion lessons in small groups rather than in whole group. That's very appropriate. When McGraw-Hill comes for those 2 PD days in August, they're going to address close reading those days with all of your teachers. Okay, let me go out. So let me show you for small groups. In the pacing guide, there is a section about small groups. And most of it's the same for every group, K through 5. But every day, small group and whole group, between the two, every day there must be a grade level lesson. I need to word that better now that I'm seeing this. There must be a grade level lesson, and there must be as many individual needs addressed as possible during that day. All your kids have to have some kind of grade level instruction every day. It doesn't matter how low they are. They've got to have grade level instruction every day. Then their needs need to be addressed at their level. Now, depending on the day, you're not going to be able to meet with every group every day. So there is a hierarchy of who needs to be met with in this pacing. You're going to address those priority 1 students first, those red star students. And then from there, you're just going to work your way up from priority 1 to priority 2, from priority 2 to priority 3, and on. You can have combinations of these kids. You can work that out however you need to, but these kids, their needs need to be addressed often. Whole group does not have to be taught all at one time. In fact, at the beginning of the year, I wouldn't teach it all at one time. You can do a little bit of whole group and then do a small group rotation. Then do a little bit more whole group and then a small group rotation. You can break it up that way. That whole group time, especially the first couple of days, is long. And so it'd be good if your teachers broke it up a little bit for the sake of the stamina of your kids. You're allowed to teach anything that is supposed to be taught in whole group in small group. So if it's something that's whole group and you know that your kids are going to struggle with it and you'd rather have them close, that's fine. Whole group means that everybody must receive the instruction. Students do not all necessarily have to receive the instruction at the same time. Whole group instruction is grade level instruction, and sometimes it needs to be scaffolded. Small group is a good place for that. You need to strive to address all 5 components of reading as often as possible: phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension. The small group plans, they are a buffet. You literally pick the ones that your kids need. And so there are a lot of options available, and I've got them listed on each grade level's pacing, okay? But what you need to do as the administrator, you may need to help your teachers narrow their focus a little bit, okay? Since there are so many choices, if you have a teacher who is a very experienced teacher, she will have no problem picking what lessons her students need. But if you have inexperienced teachers or you have some who struggle with reading, your job is going to be getting them together in grade level meetings and narrowing their focus a little bit, maybe even week to week. If you have instructional coaches, this would be a good time to use them to help them plan these lessons. So you will need to write down, or your teachers will need to write down, as Ms. Moore said, the small group lesson choices that they choose each week. And let me skip down to the bottom here. For each grade level, we have put a chart together that tells what they need to do every day. Now this is flexible. As long as you get the components on here done during the week, you can move them around a little bit if you need to, but this is what needs to be done each week. We've got time frames on there for you. This is what Ms. Moore was talking about, that your teachers can use this as their lesson plans each week, and they can check things off as they go if they'd like. On the back, or on the second page, we've got a page. You can choose to use it this way or you can choose to do it another way, but they need to document what small group lessons they are going to choose to do each day with each group. And they also need to put down which centers they're going to use for the week. They need the purpose of the center on there, what skill or standard is being addressed by the center, how they will know that the kid got what they needed out of that center, an evaluation of some kind. And we have put on the pacing guide suggestions for how to do that without overwhelming your teachers, okay? There are ways to do that without going overboard. But this is a good little planning guide. There's one for each grade level. They're all different. If I go back up where I was. So, small group lesson options, and this will be a little different in each grade level, but addressing the students who were not proficient on the previous week's assessment, that reteaching plan I showed you, that's a good small group lesson. Addressing any needs that come up during STAR and DIVLS, that's a good small group lesson. If you do get WonderWorks and you get that adaptive learning report, that's a good small group lesson. And then the teacher's edition has skill lessons for the week, each week. They also have leveled reader lessons, which your kids need to do, especially your lowest groups, because they need to close read on their level. So those leveled readers lessons are very important. And in that packet that the summer team is putting together, there are suggested level reader plans. We're putting those in there in case they want them. We're putting all kinds of stuff in those. If they need to reread the literature anthology in a small group, that's a good option. For like kindergarten, we put if they want to reread the big book back at the table and do the close reading companion together, that's a good option. And then any whole group lessons that you think would better serve your small groups. That's a lot of options for teachers. You see why you would need to kind of help them, guide them with small group decision making. Not all your teachers, but a lot of your teachers will need some guidance. And your instructional coaches can really, really help you with that. For centers, you're going to practice routines for those at the beginning of the year during Smart Start. There has to be accountability for centers. Teachers have to be able to account for who went to each center, what they did at the center, and how they performed. And we've listed ways that they can do that. We're putting a like a checklist for kids in that packet from the summer team that teachers can use if they'd like. All center work has to be on standards that have already been taught. It could be that they taught them that day and they're practicing that day, or it can be from weeks before, but it has to be on standards that have already been taught. And we have given you a list of possible options. It's not an exhaustive list, but there's a list of options you can use. And just make sure you choose ones that are going to be best for the needs of your kids. Now, for whole group, this is going to make some teachers upset, and I'm going to tell you anyway. Your teachers need to avoid using that computer-generated read aloud option. It does not need to be used during any whole group teaching, or really even any small group teaching. The only time that option is appropriate is when you have a listening center. Okay? Teacher modeling is much more appropriate than a computer-generated one. If something needs to be read, it needs to be read by teachers, or chorally read, or read in partners, anything but the computer option, okay? Avoid it. I mean, there's a whole section dedicated to the pacing. Avoid that during actual lessons. They need to model reading for their kids. Now, we have put in the pacing some notes for things that happen in whole group. For reading writing workshop, the teacher has to model note-taking. And then they need to use a variety of strategies to read, none of them including the computer-generated option. Days 3 and 4, and 2nd through 5th, that is the days that you do the read and reread in the literature anthology. That's going to cover your grade level portion of the day, but your students are also going to need close reading of those leveled readers for their level, especially your lower level kids. Those don't have to necessarily happen on days 3 and 4, but at some point during the week, they need to have something close read on their level. That way they get it grade level and their level, so that they're getting those close reading skills. We strongly suggest, and these are going in those PDF files that I showed you from the summer team, that they use the leveled reader lesson cards to teach leveled readers rather than the one in the TE. The one in the TE is very simple. The one on the card tells them like exactly what questions to ask and guides the teacher a little bit more into the complexities of close reading, and they'll be right there for them in those folders as soon as I get them on 365. So we suggest that because it's better for the kids. The read and reread is very difficult to get done, especially when you have a lot of students who are below level. And so we've offered a couple of options on how you might want to break that up for your kids. You can do it just as it's written and do everything in whole group, and then do your leveled reader stuff in small groups. That's how it's written right now. But you can also do the read portion in whole group, and then do the reread portion in small groups so that you have them close to you as you're doing the close reading companion, and then do the leveled reader in small groups as well. Other than that, text connections, that's a very important one. McGraw-Hill has actually made the suggestion that teachers should alert students to what they're going to need to do in text connections at the beginning of the week, because if they do, then they're thinking about every assignment they have is going to help them with text connections at the end of the week. And so if they're thinking about it from the beginning, every collaborative conversation they have, every graphic organizer they fill out, every note that they take, all of that can be used to do the text connections part at the end of the week. So if they're already thinking about how all that's going to come together, that might help them get through text connections a little bit faster at the end of the week. You cannot record approaching level assessments as a grade because they are not grade level. The emphasis needs to be on instruction, and so it may not even benefit you to give those approaching level assessments because that's taking time away from your instruction, and you can't report it as a grade anyway because it's not grade level. You cannot record approaching level assessments as grades. Cannot do that. I've got 10 minutes, but I've got a lot to get through. Okay. I will have all of those pacing guides posted at least by tomorrow morning. I hope to get them up today. We are in the process of making a principal's checklist for you so that you'll know what to look for each day in each grade level as you walk around your school. Even some for Smart Start, so you'll know what you need to be looking for. So we're going to develop those, and we'll let you know about them. I do need from you, I'm going to send you a Google form, and I need you to nominate 1 or 2 people in your school to be in charge of data entry. And that person is going to be in charge of making sure that everybody has turned in their data and that Dibble's data is entered, that kind of thing. I need to know the name or names of those people for your school. I also need somebody, and it can be the same person, somebody who's a lead reading teacher, so that when I have things to communicate out, I can let them know and you know, so that I have multiple people who know what's going on that can share with your teachers anything that I have to get out to you. But I'll send you that Dibble's form, not that Dibble's form, that Google form after I finish here. For Dibble's, we are using the recommended goals rather than the former goals this year. That is new. The former goals are the recommended goals are more rigorous, pretty much for the same reasons I gave you when I told you about STAR. They better show what kids can do. And so if you go to 365, there's a button that says Dibbles. It's got everything you could ever want about Dibbles in it, including the new goals. We will have 3 benchmark administrations, one at the beginning, one at the mid, and one at the end. Those will be given by your assessment team, the team that you sent to be trained a couple of weeks ago. Now, during that PD, this slide was the slide they all said, please, please, please make sure our principals know this. Please, 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 please make sure that they know your intensive students. Those students need to be tested every 2 weeks, not every week, because we want them to get more instruction. Instruction is what's going to get them further down the line, not testing them over and over. So intensive students every 2 weeks, strategic students every 3 weeks. And then I need to put this in a better format and send it to you. If you have kids who are 20 points above benchmark, you don't need to progress monitor them all the time. It's probably okay to do that every 6 weeks. But the kids who are right at benchmark up to 20 points every 4 weeks. And I'll type that up better and send it to you and put it on the DIBELS page on 365 so you'll have it. But intensive every 2, strategic every 3, core every 4 to 6. The purpose of the progress monitoring is to find our errors and deficiencies. There's a hierarchy of skills. First sound fluency. I'm brushing, I'm sorry. All of these hierarchy of skills, your lower level teachers, your kindergarten and first grade teachers, they do not have to progress monitor all 4 of those every week. They just need to focus on whichever test that baby needs at that time. So if you've got some babies who are on oral reading fluency, that's great. But if they have not mastered nonsense word fluency yet, they need to be in nonsense word fluency until they master that before they go. Does that make sense? There's a hierarchy of skills. I need to send something out that words all that better. Your DIBELS team knows this, and they know it well, so they can help out with that. Most kindergarten students should begin, is PSF, phoneme sound, I'm sorry, monitoring by November, and the nonsense word monitoring by February. First grade students begin monitoring oral reading fluency by the end of 2nd quarter. Progress monitoring is more effective if intervention happens between monitoring for intensive and strategic students, which is why we stretched it out to 2 and 3 weeks between monitoring. Benchmark books and progress monitoring books have been ordered for you. We'll update you when we know more about how these are going to come to you. Whoever you nominate as your data person, that person will be the person we put, that's the name we'll put on the books so that they go to a specific person. Okay. At the end of the year, you'll shred the books or arrange to have them shredded. STAR. All K-5 students will take STAR next year. We will continue using the Aspire option. Kindergarten students will start by taking early literacy. If they do test out by making a 775, they can move on to STAR reading. First grade, they'll start with STAR early literacy. If they test out, they'll move on to STAR reading. 2nd through 5th will take STAR reading. The only exception is that students who didn't score high enough in STAR early literacy will continue in STAR early literacy. The benchmark assessments are administered 3 times a year, and those dates are in the calendars in the pacing guide. Students can be progress monitored for STAR a maximum of once a month. They don't need to be monitored all the time. If they're being monitored, they're not being taught. Instruction over monitoring. And the only exception to that rule is if you have like an after-school program or a before-school program or something like that, you can monitor all you want in it. During the school day, as often as possible, those babies need to get instruction. If you want a progress monitor, once a month or less between benchmarks. Okay, very quickly. I'm going to offer a PD opportunity to your teachers. It's going to be up to you whether you mandate it or not, but it's a quick start course. It takes about an hour. And they'll get credit based on a certificate of completion they'll get. If any of your teachers have done it already and they already have their certificate of completion, they can get credit now. I'm going to send you an email with more details. But if you go to the ConnectEd website and you go to professional development, this box right here, this yellow box, everybody skips it. It's the most unassuming little button ever. All those videos that I made at the beginning of the year, do y'all remember that? They're already there in that yellow box. Like all the stuff that I did, Wonders had already made all of them. I just didn't know where they were. They're in that box right there, that yellow one. And so there is a quick start course. And in that quick start course, it takes about an hour. There are like 1 to 5 minute videos for each thing. And it walks your teachers through how to set up their website. Why is that important? Because if the teacher's calendar is set up correctly, all her resources automatically populate, but even more important than that, parent communication is automatically sent every single week. Now, in that parent communication, it can work on your phone or on your computer. You know, a lot of parents don't have a computer, but they've got a phone. And I tested it. It works on there. If you go to this section on the students page, every week it will give the parent a word workout sheet. This is a first grade one. It tells them all the words they need to know. You can't see it, but at the bottom it gives them activities they could do with their kids, spelling words. They tell them about the comprehension skill for the week. They give them like an activity to do if they want, and they give them another spelling list. And these you can set up to 11 different languages on this. So if you have ELL parents, there are 11 languages that these will come in, and the teacher doesn't have to do anything after she has set up her calendar. This goes automatically. They don't even have to think about it anymore. So if they do that quick start course, they'll know how to do this. I'll send you information on like where they need to go and STIPD information and where they need to send their certificate to and all that stuff. But I think that would be really valuable because in Mobile County, parents pretty much choose us. I mean, there's private schools everywhere. And so we need to support them as often and as many ways as we can. So that's all. That's not all I've got, but I'm stopping. I hope that all of this helps you. Please let me know if you need anything. Once I post these pacing guides to the 365 site, when you find mistakes, let me know. You will find mistakes. I mean, they're large documents and we've edited them a million times at this point, so please let me know. Wait at least a week before you print them, and thank you very much for your time and your patience.